Alright, it's been a little over a day since the new changes to Onslaught were made, being that the loot is getting adjusted appropriately based on how far you go into the activity. So, that begs the question, now what's the best way to farm Onslaught now that the changes are done? And there are a couple theories on how to do this, so let's get right into it. Just for starters, in response to feedback, the Bungie account Destiny 2 team posted that they felt that the rewards for staying in Onslaught for a full 50 waves didn't measure what they should actually be, and they did something to address it. For starters, the first change is there's a chance for one additional weapon to drop per wave every single wave, and this drop chance increases. Think of it like this: you start at 0 and it scales eventually to 100% chance to get a weapon after every single round, and that it resets every time it gets dropped. So you could end up with some circumstances where you get 2 or 3 weapons in back-to-back-to-back rounds, or back-to-back rounds, or you can go sometimes where you just simply don't get a weapon between round 2 and 10, but you get 4 weapons between rounds 11 and 23. Really, it's just every round you have an escalating chance to get something, and when you get it, it resets. For me, I found that these per round weapon drops are averaging around 2 extra weapons every 10 rounds, but it could be I'm getting either lucky or a little unlucky. We don't know the exact number yet. Up next, a bonus weapon is dropping after you complete wave 50 in either difficulty. This change is going to mean that you're going to be getting 2 additional weapons on Legend, 1 additional weapon on Regular, just more weapons. The chance for these weapons to be shiny doesn't change, it's just more weapons for actually going the distance to round 50. The number of trophies of bravery you receive from completing waves was increased dramatically. You're going to get way more trophies of bravery the deeper you go into Onslaught. These changes, in theory, make the game feel more rewarding. Note, the changes to the loot-based drops between round 10, 20, 30, and 40 were not changed. That being said, you're still going to be getting the regular amount of weapons from the chests at the end of the boss rounds between 10 and 40. It's only the round 50 chests that you need to consider when getting those extra weapons. Besides those extra weapons from the boss rounds drop, how does this stack up, and what are the best ways to farm it? I have 2 theories, and I've done a little bit of testing using both of them just to see what is the fastest and which results in more loot. For obvious reasons, we're just going to be comparing this to the pre-patch method, that being you just went into Legend, you did your 10 rounds really quick, really dirty, you got your loot, and you got out, and you hoped for those shiny weapons. Now, this method took in between 8 and 12 minutes, depending on the crew you were rolling with. Sometimes it was going to be a little bit slower if you get unlucky, sometimes it'd be a little bit quicker if you do get lucky. That's where that variance of between 8 and 12 minutes comes from. That is usually the times that my teams were running it at, but the average was that these runs were taking 10 minutes, so that's the average speed that I'm looking at. Results are going to be different for everybody, of course. These 10-minute runs were resulting between 2 and 3 weapon drops per run. You're getting 2 weapon drops from the final chest, guaranteed, and then occasionally, when I say occasionally, I mean it was happening relatively infrequently, getting weapon drops from either doing the objectives or just randomly from completing a round, but that's what we were looking at, between 2 and 3 weapons. I'm just going to be using 2 weapons every 10 minutes for the standard for farming this. Post-patch, when you're farming, you are still getting those 2 weapons every 10 minutes. However, you do have to consider that you are guaranteed a minimum of 2 extra weapons for every 50 completed rounds from the bonus chest. That's not to say you won't get more, because like I said, there was that scaling bonus that you proceed to get an additional weapon the higher you go up into the rounds, but that resets every time you get one of those, so you're probably going to be getting between 2 and 3 extra weapons per run if you're unlucky, or you could be getting a little more than that if you're a little bit luckier than most. With this being said, you have to consider average time per 10 rounds. When you're farming the first 10 rounds, on average, for me, I will say it is around 10 minutes. When doing Legend, by the time you get to wave 50, you're starting to look at your runs being between 50 and 60-minute longs due to things like unlucky spawns, enemies not funneling in correctly, and the fact that the general power level just increases the further you go into the run means you're going to be killing things much, much slower. This for me brings my average per 50 rounds to approximately 12.5 to 13 minutes. The number wasn't exact. I haven't done too many rounds 250, but we're ending anywhere between 56 and 61 on the rounds that I have done, and my own friends grinding in their own time agree that that is around the average per 10 rounds. So we look at those two averages. We look at 2 drops per 10 minutes when farming Legend regular with the chance of receiving extra drops that scale between those first 10 rounds. And then we look at the minimum 12 drops per 60 minutes if you're going the distance on Legend. No, if you're quicker, you're quicker. If you're slow, you're slower. That's just around what my averages were, 50 rounds in 60 minutes. Because I'm bad at math, the conclusion that I draw from this is you really can't go wrong with either one of these farming methods. The real kicker is one, how lucky do you think you are going to get with those additional extra drops the further you go into the Legend Onslaught, and how much time do you have to commit for doing these runs? So for me, I've come up with a simple rule that we've been following when farming, and it seemed to be the most efficient way to get through this. By the time we hit round 30, we look at the clock. If that round 30 clock is less than 30 minutes, we continue to round 50. If that clock is kicking somewhere between 33 to 38 minutes, we'll reset and go back to wave 10. The reason for doing this is if our average time, if we can get the round 50 average time below 60 minutes, this is doing two things for us. For starters, it's increasing our average drops per minute up from 1 drop every 5 minutes to like 1.1, 1.2 drops every 5 minutes. Just the shorter we can do those level 50 runs, the more loot we are going to get over time, and the more loot we will be receiving compared to other players who were just doing the 10 rounds reset, 10 rounds reset. In addition to this, the deeper you go into those rounds, by the time you hit level 30, we're getting an extra 1 to 2 and sometimes even 3 weapon drops. I personally have gotten 2 weapon drops in back-to-back rounds, kind of skewing my data a little bit, making me more biased towards going later in the runs, but I'm also playing with friends who they themselves have told me that they aren't getting weapons at the same rate that I'm getting them. In conclusion, the choice really is up to you on how you want to farm. I personally do not see anything wrong with doing either round 10, round 30, or round 50 farming. It's just really depending on a couple factors. For starters, how much time do you have? If you don't have an hour to commit to a round 50 run, then there's nothing wrong with just going back to back and doing 10-minute runs to guarantee yourself those 2 drops every 10 minutes. And if you do have that around an hour to spend on doing a round 50 run, then do your round 50. You're going to be getting more loot per hour, I feel, than if you were to just do the round 10 because of the way the extra drops are sprinkled in and the way that they are working right now. Anyway, let me know what you think. This was just a quick and dirty look at my own statistics running through Onslaught, analyzing footage, and just doing a little bit of hesitant number crunching. I know it's not going to be the best. All I know is that if you're averaging 1 weapon every 5 minutes, you're probably going to be better off just doing round 10. But if you could take that average up to like 1.1 and 1.2 weapons every 10 minutes by speed running and getting the activity done as quick as possible, then you're probably going to be better just farming around 50 if you have the time to go the distance for that between 50 and 70 minutes that a lot of players are going to need to go the distance. In any case, I hope that each and every single one of you has a great day. I hope you are enjoying the new update. I know I certainly am, despite not getting a single gold from the Onslaught drops. No, I do not think that the solution to this is guaranteeing a gold drop at round 50. I think that is a little bit of a cop-out and kind of cheapens the experience of getting the gold, of getting that shiny, but I want to hear what you think. Let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you haven't, subscribe if you haven't. Most of the people who watch my channel aren't actually subscribed, so I would appreciate if you would do that. And yeah, I hope each and every single one of you has a fantastic day. I've yapped for a little bit too long at this point, so have a great day and bye.